Chapter 65 Mix and Match Battle of the Seven Monsters. Dai Yahang glanced at Ma Xiaotao, feeling a little dubious. In a low voice, he said, Chen Zifeng, Shu Sanchi. Both of them immediately arrived at Dai Yahang's side. Ma Xiaotao immediately made her decision again. Zai Zai, Bei Bei. Hearing her say this, Hua Yuao almost burst out laughing. Combining the characters from Zai and Bei, wouldn't that form the word for fake goods? As he was walking over, Bei Bei evidently thought of that as well, because the expression on his face was a little strange. He wanted to laugh, but he held it in. Dai Yahang said, Ling Luogan, Yao Haoxuan. He could choose 3 people for the starting lineup. After Ma Xiaotao made 2 of her selections, it was naturally important to decide the next 2 candidates at the first possible moment. The team would definitely be a little stronger with the sulking amongst them, especially since their opponents were all inner courtyard students from Shrek Academy. Ma Xiaotao naturally went ahead and chose 2 more people. This time around, she obviously chose the reserve members from the outer courtyard, Pikachu, Wang Dong. Both parties had finished making their decisions at this moment in time. In the end, Zhang Nanan and Xiaxia naturally went to Dai Yuhang's team, since they were the only 2 remaining from the reserve team. On Ma Xiaotao's end, the ones she chose were herself, Gong Yangmo, Hua Yuao, Zai Zai, Bei Bei, Pikachu, and Wang Dong. On the other hand, Dai Yuhang's final decision was to go with Chen Zifeng, Ling Luogan, Shu Sanchi, Zhang Nanan, and Xiaxia. There were 7 people on each end, but both teams had already been completely broken up. This match was led by Ma Xiaotao and Dai Yahang with the intention to learn from one another. Even though this match was primarily meant for both parties to fiercely compete with each other based on strength alone, it was similarly testing their abilities to select their team members as well. In a team battle, one would display different combat strengths when put in different groups. Ellison hugged his huge alcohol calabash and laughed mischievously. He then said, Very well, since you guys have finished choosing your members, I will give you 10 minutes to plan your tactics. After 10 minutes, the match will start. The losing party. Well, you can just scream this sentence. I am a pig and that'll be fine. Sure enough, this was a peculiar punishment, causing Wang Dong to break out in laughter. There were 7 people on both parties. The distance between both parties naturally grew as they went to stand on each opposite ends of the assessment area. Gong Yangmo spoke to Ma Xiaotao in a low voice. Xiaotao, why didn't you choose a control system battle soul master? Didn't I say that you can't put Zai Zai in? But you also know that if you don't have a control type in a team battle, we will be at a huge disadvantage. We usually conduct drills together, so you should also be very clear as to how powerful Ling Luokan and Yao Haoxuan are together as control types. Even though I can barely act as a control type, I am not a true control type after all is said and done. Ma Xiaotao glared at him and said, Do I need you to teach me what to do? You just need to do everything you can to assist everyone when the match starts. I'll take care of Dai Yahang, but I can't finish him off in a short period of time. I can only do my best and help the rest of you. Zai Zai, I'll hand Chen Zifeng over to you. Zai Zai frowned a little. Shouldn't I take care of Ling Luokan first? Ma Xiaotao shook her head and said, Ling Luokan has Yao Haoxuan by his side. You will be at a disadvantage because Yao Haoxuan's ability can restrain you. Relax, I have a plan. Bei Bei, follow Zai Zai when the time comes. Both of you have lightning abilities, so you'll complement one another. You guys need to get rid of Chen Ziheng at the quickest possible moment. Then you guys can focus on helping the others. Since we just put these 2 teams together, I know there isn't going to be much rapport between us in the upcoming confrontation. The most it's going to be is a battle between individuals. K2, I know that you're a very talented outer courtyard student from the Soul Tool department. You don't need to hold back for later, and can shower them with omnidirectional explosive attacks. Okay. K2 replied. Only then did Ma Xiaotao shift her gaze to Hua Yuao. There was an odd expression on her face as she chuckled. Little Yuao, elder sister did not pick you because we are personally on good terms. Elderson only allowed me to choose 2 people from the starting lineup. You are the key as to whether we can win this battle or not, so you better go all out. I'll give you and Wang Dong the authority to battle as you please. Let me see just how far you can go. Moreover, I'll hand the team's control over to you. Even if you can't control your opponents, the best you can do is control the people on your team. Can you do that? Hua Yuao couldn't help but avert his gaze, seeing as there was somewhat of a playful look in Ma Xiaotao's eyes. He had no choice but to nod and say, I'll do my best. Ma Xiaotao snorted and said, Doing your best is out of the question. We must definitely win. If you let this old woman scream that line as punishment, then you better be prepared for the consequences. After she finished talking, she straightened her back and almost knocked into Hua Yuao. A valiant aura suddenly rose around her as Ma Xiaotao turned around and looked at their opponents in the distance. Is Dai Yahang not satisfied that I got to lead the team when I returned? If so, then this old woman will beat him up till he's satisfied. Elder sister Xiaotao, I have a question. Wang Dong suddenly spoke. Ma Xiaotao glanced at him and asked, What's the question? Wang Dong said, I've heard that there needs to be a student from the Soul Tool department amongst Shrek's 7 monsters. But there isn't one amongst your group. Ma Xiaotao indifferently said, We originally had one, but he was eliminated after I returned. No one is indispensable on this team. If we have to get rid of one person, we can deal with not having a Soul Tool master. Hua Yuao and K2 frowned hearing her say that. Even though Ma Xiaotao didn't intentionally direct those words at the Soul Tool department, it was extremely easy to discern from her tone that the Soul Tool department didn't have a position in the inner courtyard. The 10 minutes were up quickly. Dai Yuhang had evidently made certain arrangements on his end too. Both parties faced each other from opposite ends of the assessment area. Elderson's voice rang out once more. From now on, you are not students, but enemies. I don't need to tell you what to do to fight over the title of not being a pig. All of you don't need to hold back. Start. Both parties were still extremely far away from each other right now. When he shouted start, both teams immediately moved. Ma Xiaotao was the first to rush out. Once the tips of her toes touched the ground, she was like an arrow, shooting straight out at lightning speed. Fiery feathers suddenly appeared, and following that, a radiant glow burned fiercely in her eyes. A strong reddish gold flame burst forth, lighting up the whole field. Hua Yuao and Wang Dong had personally seen how Ma Xiaotao was like when she launched an all-out attack. When they saw the flames from her evil phoenix, they were suddenly fired up. They had never expected that they'd actually get to fight alongside Ma Xiaotao so soon. However, Ma Xiaotao's opponent was Dai Yuhang's team. As a result of that, she clearly wasn't as fierce and quick compared to when dealing with those soul masters who wanted to kill Hua Yuao and Wang Dong last time. She intentionally controlled the speed at which she was advancing, and maintained the formation she had with her team members behind her. Zai Zai also made a move at the same time Ma Xiaotao advanced forwards. She was much faster than the outer courtyard students anticipated, and was even faster than Ma Xiaotao. In a flash, she was right behind Ma Xiaotao. It seemed as though her whole body had already fused into Ma Xiaotao's flames. However, the moment she disappeared, Ma Xiaotao's blazing phoenix flames seemed somewhat colder than before. 2 magnificent pairs of wings simultaneously appeared on the battlefield. One of them was naturally Wang Dong's radiant butterfly goddess. Radiant rays of light flickered in blue and gold as he unfurled his wings. However, Wang Dong didn't take flight. Rather, he held Hua Yuao's hand as they quickly dashed forwards with the help of his wings. The other magnificent pair of wings didn't lose to the radiant butterfly goddess wings in terms of beauty. The other person had huge wings with feathers that comprised of all the colors of the rainbow, starting with red feathers on the person's back. The colors spread out till the tips of the wings were purple, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Those 7 colors were pure and sparkled in the light. When he took flight, it was just as though a rainbow was hovering in the sky. This gorgeous pair of wings belonged to the elegant Gong Yangmo. In this moment, his long hair had similarly turned into the colors of the rainbow. There was also white scales on his skin. On the whole, it was just like he turned into a huge colorful bird. The only difference between him and birds was that his legs seemed to have thickened a bit, with scales faintly flashing at his ankles. What was this martial soul? The outer courtyard disciples had also learned about many martial souls, but they hadn't heard about a martial soul like Gong Yangmo's before. The rarity of said martial soul could be compared to the radiant butterfly goddess. Hikachu wasn't fast, but one shouldn't forget that he was a rank 4 soul tool master. Rays of light suddenly shone on his back, brazenly indicating that the propeller had been activated. Moreover, he dragged Bei Bei along with him and caught up to Ma Xiaotao, not slowing down in the slightest. At this moment, their formation was as follows. Gong Yangmo was in the sky. Ma Xiaotao, Zai Zai, Bei Bei and Hikachu were in front with Hua Yuao and Wang Dong behind them. On the other end, Dai Yahang's team similarly got into formation. Dai Yahang took the lead and released the white tiger martial soul unique to the white tiger Duke's mansion. A netherworldly glint shone in his eyes that had 2 pupils in them. They were filled with an intense desire to fight. Chen Zifeng was on his left, whereas Shu Sanchi was on his right. Zhang Nanan on the other hand, was behind Dai Yahang. 3 control system battle soul soul masters were following them further behind the group. Ling Luogan, Yao Hashwen and Xiaxia were standing next to each other. The trio released their martial souls one after the other. The 7 on their end were arranged in a 3-1-3 formation. 7 versus 7. A match between the students from the inner and outer courtyard as well as the Shrek 7 monsters was about to begin. Amongst everyone present on the battlefield, the conspicuous ones weren't the 2 soul emperors who were charging forth, ahead from everyone else in their own pack. Rather, Huo Yuao was the one who caught everyone's eye as a soul master with only 2 soul rings. His 2 white soul rings were really too striking. When Gong Yangmo saw Huo Yuao's white soul rings as he flew in the sky, he almost fell down. He really wanted to question when the Shrek Academy had a student who had 2 10-year-old soul rings. Moreover, this student would even become a core disciple. If that wasn't enough, this student was also part of the Shrek 7 monsters reserve team. It seemed as though Ma Xiaotao valued him highly too, as everyone else released their dazzling yellow, purple, and even black soul rings. Huo Yuao's pair of pure white ones naturally became the focus of the entire field. Shrek Academy's assessment area took up a large amount of space, and though both parties were moving quickly, it still took a while for them to approach each other. At this moment, they were only 100 meters away from each other. Huo Yuao's first soul ring was the first to light up. The halo created by the pure white soul ring wasn't large, and it would be hard to attract anybody's attention with it. However, in the short period of time in which the halo expanded, the other 6 people in Ma Xiaotao's team were all astonished. The sudden feeling of having an extra brain helped them calculate and detect everything around them was simply too miraculous. They didn't even need to use their eyes to feel everything around them. The appearance of the 3-dimensional image caused a large quantity of data to appear in their minds, causing them to feel much more confident. Though their opponents hadn't even entered the range of Huo Yuao's spiritual detection, its sudden and powerful effects stunned the few members of the official team who weren't familiar with him. Just why had Ma Xiaotao chosen Huo Yuao? In reality, she wasn't very clear on Huo Yuao's abilities, but his ultimate martial soul had left too deep an impression on her. The gap between her cultivation and Huo Yuao's couldn't even be described using the phrase as wide as the difference between the heavens and the earth. However, even in a situation like this, he was able to rely on his weak ability to completely suppress her evil fire within a full day. After that suppression, Ma Xiaotao could no longer feel that evil intent burning her anymore. Though she knew that this was treating the symptoms and not the root cause of her problem, Ma Xiaotao knew that there would be no chance of a relapse occurring even if she cultivated and battled for an entire month. Combined with that fact that she had personally witnessed Huo Yuao and Wang Dong escape from the encirclement of a soul emperor and 5 soul kings, she knew that she couldn't treat them like ordinary 2-ringed and 3-ring soul masters. Ella Sun was extremely picky, but had still allowed the 3 of them to enter the preparatory team. Their talent could be seen from this fact alone. Because of this, Ma Xiaotao's first pick wasn't Bei Bei or Xu Sanqi, but Huo Yuao. She hoped to be surprised by him, and the facts had shown that Huo Yuao had given her, Zai Zai, and Gong Yangmo an extremely large shock. The omnidirectional spiritual shock was essentially a fusion of a control type and auxiliary type skill, and its accurate scouting capabilities immediately gave them the initiative. The Madare Gong Yangmo revealed a look of surprise, then revealed his strength. After all, he couldn't fall behind his little junior disciples. A dazzling 7-colored light lit up, and Gong Yangmo's first and second 100-year soul rings lit up. He flapped his wings, causing a red and orange ring of light to soundlessly emerge from his body and envelop his allies below him. Immediately, an astonishing scene occurred. A scarlet red and orange ring of light appeared on the other 6 people led by Ma Xiaotao, and they were able to sense the strength of Gong Yangmo's auxiliary type skill. The first buff they were given was an increase in strength. It was admittedly true that soul power was important, but one's physical strength played a similarly important role. When the red ring of light appeared, the 6 of them felt as if they'd been given a cardiac stimulant. This increased their strength by more than 50%, thus increasing their speed as well. However, the orange ring of light was even more miraculous. After it landed on Ma Xiaotao's team, they immediately felt as if they'd become a source of energy. The elemental undulations in the air became much clearer to them, before surging into their bodies like a river flowing into a sea. This was actually an auxiliary skill that could recover a person's soul power. A supplementary ability on this level could be considered to be an explosive increase to the overall strength of their team. This was the most important use of an auxiliary type soul master in a battle. As an official member of the current participating team, Gong Yangmo's cultivation level could be imagined. The reason why he was ranked last wasn't because of a deficiency in his soul power or his martial soul, but because he was only an auxiliary type tool soul master who didn't have any combat strength himself. Normally, a figure like him would tend to be ranked last in a team. In terms of simple cultivation, however, he was second only to Ma Xiaotao and Dai Yuhang. What Huo Yuao and the rest didn't know, however, was that because Ma Xiaotao had been affected by her evil fire, she had had to temporarily leave the Shrek 7 monsters, and hence not be able to represent the school. At that time, the captain of the official team was Dai Yuhang, while the vice captain was Gong Yangmo, who was ranked last. Gong Yangmo's martial soul was called the Rainbow Dragon. This was a soul beast that actually existed, but was extremely rare. Its rarity was around that of Wang Dong's radiant butterfly goddess. The dragon race had always been very powerful, and the Rainbow Dragon wasn't an exception to the case. After all, it had the word dragon attached to its name. Whenever a Rainbow Dragon appeared, it would be followed by the most powerful members of the dragon race, as the companion of the Dragon King. The Dragon King, who was the partner of the Rainbow Dragon, would generally be unshakable. That was precisely because it had the terrifying assistance of the Rainbow Dragon. Practically every single member of the dragon race was powerful in battle, but the Rainbow Dragon was an exception to this rule. It didn't have a high level of physical strength, nor did it have a terrifying innate soul skill. However, it had the highest amount of magical power. Because of this, it was also referred to as the Magic Dragon. Gong Yangmo was an auxiliary type tool soul master, but his martial soul was actually a beast soul. Of the many auxiliary type martial souls, the strongest of the tool souls was the 7 treasures glazed pagoda that Ningtian possessed. Once it was able to enter the realm of 9 treasures, its auxiliary capabilities could terrify even a titled Douluo. Gong Yangmo's Rainbow Dragon, on the other hand, was the strongest auxiliary type martial soul within the category of beast souls. It was comparable to the 7 treasures glazed pagoda. However, like the former, his Rainbow Dragon suffered a few limitations. Once he achieved the 7-colored gamut, or the 7-ringed rank in other words, taking another step would be extremely difficult for him. The Rainbow Dragon and the 7 treasures glazed pagoda each had their own specialties. On a comprehensive scale, there were hardly any differences between their respective strengths. From this, it could be seen how strong the pinnacle 5-ringed Gong Yangmo was in the auxiliary field. Ma Xiaotao had taken him as her first pick due to the 30% strength increase he would give to the entire team, allowing her to make up for the lack of an extra member from the official team. Just as Huo Yuao and Gong Yangmo released their control and auxiliary type skills, the 7-man team led by Dai Yuhang began to release their soul skills. A heaven-shaking roar rang out. The person who made the first move was the relatively unremarkable member of the official Shrek 7 monsters, Yao Hashwen. His extremely petite body suddenly accelerated, and he stomped his right foot on the ground heavily. Boom! A muffled, loud sound shook the entire assessment area, as if an earth dragon was rising to its feet. It was very difficult to imagine how Yao Hashwen's petite body was able to release such an enormous amount of power. Right after that, he borrowed the tyrannical amount of force from his stomp to shoot into the air. Then, Huo Yuao witnessed a scene that he'd never seen on a soul master before. Yao Hashwen's petite body released a shattering sound in midair, tearing his school uniform to bits and pieces. As if he knew this was going to happen, he wore a dark gold shirt under his uniform. This shirt was extremely elastic. It didn't have any signs of tearing even after his body suddenly expanded. Normally, a soul master who possessed a beast soul would undergo a few changes when they activated them. For example, this was the case for Ma Xiaotao and Dai Yuhang. However, amongst the soul masters Huo Yuao had seen before, a person could only double the size of his body at most. However, the current Yao Hashwen had completely overturned his understanding. While his body was in midair, Yao Hashwen extended his forelimbs. Then, his terrifying muscles bulged, and within the blink of an eye, he became an enormous and over-exaggerated Adonis. Every single one of his muscles swelled, and the surface of his skin was covered in a keratin and leather-like substance. His skin turned metallic grey, and his eyes turned dark green. Yao Hashwen, who originally wasn't even as tall as Ling Luogan, was now over 4 meters tall as he landed on the ground with a crash. Right, 4 meters. This was a height that ordinary humans couldn't even grow to. The more terrifying fact was that his shoulders were 3 meters wide. After landing, he became as thick as a small fortress. He took a deep, coarse breath, then raised his pectorals, which were as large as a chopping block. He pounded his chest using his enormous, hammer-like fists, and 2 yellow soul rings lit up. Boom, 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 boom. Amidst the muffled booms, everyone could see yellow rings of light spread out from Yao Hashwen's body. Every single member of the opposing team was covered with a layer of yellow light, and their auras became evidently sharper. On the other hand, Hua Yua's team began to feel slightly dizzy after hearing that muffled sound. This was the auxiliary and control type soul master, Yao Hashwen. Just what martial soul did he possess? Following Gong Yangmo's appearance, another martial soul which Hua Yua completely didn't recognize appeared. Control type soul masters would always make the first move in a team battle. They didn't just control their enemies, but their own teammates as well if they were able to. Control-type soul masters were always known as the commanders of the battlefield. Because of this, Yao Hashwen wasn't the only person from Dai Yuheng's team who made a move. The control-type Ling Luoken and Xiao Xiao made a move as well. Xiao Xiao knew that her cultivation was too low to play a decisive role in the battle. As such, she only used her Nina Phoenix worshipping flute. When she did, a woo-woo sound echoed throughout the surrounding area, and Ma Xiaotao's speed was immediately reduced by a small margin. Compared to Xiao Xiao, the nearby Ling Luoken was much more powerful. When she released her martial soul, all 5 of her soul rings began to move rhythmically, and a layer of ice crystals covered her entire body. Immediately afterwards, the layer of ice crystals began to shine as they merged with her second soul ring, which caused her body to be encased in light blue ice armor. When the light from her teammates' soul rings shone on it, the light was refracted and gave birth to a beautiful and radiant display of colors. Her first soul ring was the next to light up. Ling Luoken raised her right hand when it did, and made a grabbing motion. When she did, a 2-meter-long magical staff made of ice crystals materialized from a blue light. Unexpectedly, both of the soul skills she'd used so far had nothing to do with control. One had caused a magical staff to materialize, the other a suit of ice armor. Despite this, neither of these abilities seemed weak. However, Ling Luoken quickly displayed her strength. She pointed the staff towards the sky, and a layer of ice blue light instantly enveloped the surrounding area. Afterwards, the ice blue air rushed towards the enemy team. She didn't use any other soul skills. As one might notice, her martial soul was nothing but ice. She had an extremely rare elemental martial soul that let her control ice. Ma Xiaotao was in the front. Therefore, she would have been the first one to suffer the effects of the wave of cold. Dai Yuheng and the others thought she would use her phoenix flames to resist the attack. However, she did nothing of the sort. She just stopped. Given her cultivation, Ling Luoken's ability to control ice wasn't really a threat to her. However, ice could restrain fire. With Ling Luoken here, her phoenix flames would be weakened, and her consumption of spiritual power would also increase. But surprisingly enough, the irritable Ma Xiaotao didn't push forward. Since she had stopped, her teammates also quickly caught up. Hua Yuao, release your ice element aura and suppress her. Ma Xiaotao shouted in a low voice. At this time, they were less than 50 meters away from Dai Yuheng and Chen Zifeng, and right now, they had already entered the range of Hua Yuao's spiritual detection. The condition of their soul power, their speed, their movements, all the moves they were planning to do, nothing could escape Hua Yuao's spiritual detection. However, Hua Yuao was still a little nervous. After all, the opposing team had 4 students of the inner courtyard. When Ma Xiaotao shouted that command, he mistook her intentions. Suppress her? How exactly can I suppress her? If it were a Soul Grandmaster, maybe I would be able to suppress him. But a Soul King? This is impossible. Ma Xiaotao was much more experienced than him. Therefore, she just wanted to make him release his ultimate ice element martial soul. Even if Ling Luoken had a powerful elemental martial soul, it was still somewhat lacking compared to an ultimate martial soul of the ice element. Just by releasing his ultimate ice element, he would be able to protect his teammates from Ling Luoken's ability to control ice. Otherwise, if they were to be affected by this cold, their speed and power would drop drastically. However, Hua Yuan didn't know that his duty was so easy. He only had to release the martial soul of the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion and spread her aura in all directions. He had turned a simple task into something very complicated. Sister Xiaotao, you're asking too much of me. How should I proceed now? Would he allow them to say that he was a coward? Of course he wouldn't. At this time, Hua Yuan recalled the words that Ma Xiaotao had left on the ground. This immediately ignited his fighting spirit. A golden light flickered through his eyes. Then, his second soul ring lit up. Since Ma Xiaotao had stopped, everyone else stopped too. They all heard the order she had given to Hua Yuan. Hua Yuan took a step forward. At this time, he was standing in front of his teammates. After that, he released a piercing shriek from his mouth, and at the same time, his body also disappeared completely. At this moment, Dai Yuheng, Chen Zifeng, and the others saw that Ma Xiaotao had stopped. Therefore, they also reduced their speed. If you know both yourself and your enemy, you won't suffer defeat. There was surely a reason behind the other party's strange behavior. Then, they saw the boy called Hua Yuan taking a step forward, and after that piercing shriek, they saw his body disappear completely. All those rays of light connected to his body also lost their luster. At this time, the wave of cold arrived where Yuao and the others were standing. Except for Hua Yuan, everyone else felt their bodies become cold. The temperature in the surrounding area also drastically fell. Ma Xiaotao was dumbfounded. She was just about to curse that idiotic Hua Yuan when the surrounding scenery changed. A strange form appeared where Hua Yuan was standing, and when it appeared, it caused the surrounding air to instantly congeal. Then, a burst of ancient, powerful and overbearing aura spread from its body. Elder Sun, who was overseeing the match from the sky, lowered his head and spurted out the alcohol in his mouth. His eyes were wide open and almost seemed to fall from his eye sockets. Afterwards, he started to cough fiercely. The alcohol had almost caused him to choke. Hua Yuao's body had disappeared, and a beautiful and fearful form had appeared in his stead. It was a scorpion. A very beautiful scorpion. It was around 1.5 meters long, and its body had 2 colorations. One part had the same color as ice, while the other was a deep green. At its front, there were 4 overlapping layers. Each layer was slightly longer than 15 centimeters, and the head was situated on the first one. Its silver white mouth was emitting a cold light. Moreover, the first half of these 4 layers was covered with strange scales. Each of these scales was hexagonal, and each and every one of them was emitting a bright light, just like protruding diamonds. Its 6 powerful long legs were also densely covered by these protuberances. Under the snowy radiance, they were emitting a blinding light. At this moment, it seemed as if its entire body had become a source of light. Myriad different light shades were refracted from it. The 2 pincers in the front were each a meter long. The pincers were also covered by those protruding diamond-like hexagonal scales. They were similar to its mouth, emitting a silver white radiance like 2 mirrors. However, the most eye-catching part was its 2 eyes. These eyes were yellow and shining like a pair of crystals. They also had a hexagonal shape. They were emitting a bright yellow radiance, giving off an unusual feeling. If you were to think that the first half was bright enough, you still had to see the latter half. A long and dazzling tail was sticking up from its back, and this was the core of the radiance it was emanating. Unlike the many segments of a normal scorpion's, its tail only had 5. Each joint had a charming dark green color. The glittering dark green color almost seemed lifelike. These 5 joints all had the same color, and the closer they were close to the body, the larger they were. Likewise, the farther they were, the narrower they got. At the end of the last joint was a diamond-like stinger that was standing high up in the sky. The tip of the stinger was also emitting a silver white luster. This soul beast, whose entire body resembled a shining precious treasure, was emitting an aura capable of making one terrified. After all, it was soul beast that had moved unhindered in the extreme north for nearly 400,000 years. It was ranked second among the 3 emperors of the extreme north, the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion. The 6 people from the outer courtyard weren't really affected. After all, they hadn't ever encountered a first-class soul beast, and they didn't know what the aura of a first-class soul beast looked like. In their eyes, this scorpion was nothing but a beautiful and dangerous beast. However, the students of the inner courtyard were different. After entering the inner courtyard, their classes were different from those of the outer courtyard. They had a class that took place exactly in the Great Stardow Forest. As soon as the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion appeared, they felt an immense fear. It was the pressure of a 100,000-year soul beast. The aura of the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion exploded out, and a sense of coldness spread everywhere. That wave of cold immediately stopped midair, then began to slowly solidify. It turned into a white light that enveloped the tip of the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion's stinger. Those 2 bright yellow eyes were devoid of every emotion as they looked at the faraway Ling Luoken. Ling Luoken felt her body stiffen, and she couldn't move from where she was standing. If one were to look carefully, they would notice that the ice armor covering her body had started to show signs of abnormally hardening. In addition, her feet were glued to the earth by a layer of ice. She couldn't move anymore, and her body had started to freeze. All of this happened in an instant. While everyone was still dumbfounded due to Hua Yuan turning into the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion, Ling Luoken had already been completely subdued. Elder Sun, this is a 100,000-year soul beast. Ma Xiaotao was astonished. She quickly released her martial soul to protect the people behind her. Sister Xiaotao, what are you doing? Quick, attack them. A form suddenly flashed. That terrifying Ice Jade Empress Scorpion had disappeared, and Huo Yuao had reappeared in her stead. Moreover, he was impatiently pressing forward, unaware of the fact that everyone was about to attack him. Even Elder Sun was preparing to fight him. Stop! Elder Sun shouted from midair. He descended from the sky and arrived in front of Huo Yuao. Afterwards, he raised his right hand and grabbed him. As for resisting it, it was completely useless. Huo Yuao was nothing but an ant in front of someone like Elder Sun. Elder Sun's hand held his shoulder. Then, Huo Yuao felt powerful soul power entering and probing every corner of his body. The quantity of soul power was too large, but luckily, Huo Yuao's meridians had gone through a lot tempering, and were quite strong right now. And what surprised him the most was that after experiencing Elder Sun's soul power, his own soul power that had reached the peak of rank 26 suddenly broke through, allowing him to successfully reach rank 27. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.